Revealed. Incredible text at my son's funeral from unknown number. I'm alive. Don't trust her. The sun hung low over Maplewood, casting long shadows on the ground as Mark stood at the head of his son's grave, the weight of sorrow heavy in his chest. Friends, neighbors, and strangers had gathered, their faces a blur of grief mirroring his own. They all knew Danny, the boy who could smack a baseball like it was nothing, the kid who lit up the field every Saturday with his laughter. But today there was silence, the kind that sliced through the air like a foul ball taken to the gut. As the eulogy wrapped up, Mark's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at the screen, feeling a jolt that twisted in his stomach. I'm alive, don't trust her. The unknown number felt foreign, yet the message struck him like a thunderclap, reverberating in his mind. Alive? What did it mean? The warmth of community closed around him, but suddenly everything felt unreal. He could almost hear Danny's voice, feel the joyous memories of long weekends spent tossing a baseball between them, dreams filling the air. They had been a team. Now it felt like that team was ripped apart, leaving him grappling with an insurmountable void. Tears slid down his cheeks. This was more than a loss, it was an earthquake shaking his very core. Mark, you okay? One neighbor asked gently, concern etched on their face. Need anything? But what could anyone really offer? Comfort felt inadequate. The communal barbecue sizzling nearby filled the air with the familiar smell of honey-glazed ribs, a reminder of happier times, now overshadowed by grief. He nodded but felt hollowed out. That moment he was torn. The text haunted him, clawing at his heart. Should he believe it? A part of him craved to chase after this thread of hope, while another part desperately wanted to cling to the memory of the son he lost. Danny's estranged mother, who left before they'd even gotten to Little League, now loomed larger in the shadows of his thoughts. Would pursuing this thread of truth lead to healing or destroy what few pieces of his family were left? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The whispers from the crowd began to seep in. Did you hear about Mark's wife? What will he do now? Each unsettling remark intensified the pressure in his chest. Mark took a deep breath, searching the faces of the assembled crowd. They stood unified in shared loss, yet he felt separate, a man lost at sea. As he read the text again, he knew he was standing at a crossroads. It could lead to revelations about Danny, hidden truths lurking just beneath the surface. Another message buzzed through. You're too close, stop before it's too late. Fear gripped him. To uncover the truth seemed like a weighty gamble that could obliterate his last ties to Danny. With determination flickering like a candle in the dark, Mark thought, what if the truth could heal? Should he plunge deeper? The sun dipped further, casting long shadows, leaving him breathless with questions he hadn't known existed. Where could this path lead him? The crowd began to disperse, just as the horizon swallowed the sun, draping Maplewood in a cloak of twilight. Mark stood there rooted, his mind racing. Should he investigate? What if this was just a cruel prank? But the words lingered, dancing like a ghost at the edge of his mind, begging for attention. He slipped his phone back into his pocket, resisting the urge to respond immediately. Instead, he turned to leave, gathering what little strength he had. Every step felt heavy, the weight of a world that was suddenly too big to bear. The smell of barbecue now clashed with the taste of grief on his tongue. Had he truly lost Danny, or was there still a thread of hope that could point to a different truth? At home, the silence was suffocating. Mark dropped his keys on the counter with a clatter that echoed in the empty space. Pictures of Danny grinned back at him, remnants of happier days. In that moment they felt like daggers piercing him, reminding him of everything he had lost. The late-night talks, the high-fives after a good game, the sheer joy of living. He let out a shaky breath, pulling out his phone again. What if he just texted back? The thought seemed reckless yet tantalizing. He scrolled through his contacts, pausing at one name, Helen. Danny's mother. The woman who walked away before he even had a chance to know her. anger mixed with fear as he contemplated a reunion that had never happened. How could he confront her after all this time? Would she have answers? He took a deep breath and typed, "Is this really you? If you're alive, where are you?" His fingers trembled over the keys, the message feeling like a lifeline. He hit send, anxiety knotting his stomach. In the small living room, time stretched. Minutes felt like hours, each one pregnant with possibility and dread. He grabbed a beer from the fridge, but it tasted like cardboard. Just as he began to pace, his phone buzzed in response. Heart racing, he quickly glanced at the screen. "Meet me at the old diner tomorrow at noon. Trust no one." Mark felt weak. The old diner was where he'd spent countless afternoons with Danny, filling their days with burgers and fries. Now it twisted into something ominous, a reminder of everything that had gone wrong. But there was an undeniable pull, a thread he couldn't resist tugging at. He knew he had to go. As the night crept in, Mark prepared himself for what lay ahead. What would he uncover? Would this meeting with a woman who had vanished from his life reveal the secrets surrounding Danny's death? Or would it just lead to more heartache? Every moment spent in the shadows of doubt felt like another piece of his heart slipping away. In the middle of that sleepless night, he stared at the ceiling, drifting between hope and despair. What if this journey could reclaim not just the truth about Danny but the pieces of himself he thought he had lost forever? As dawn crept in, he resolved to confront whatever was waiting for him. He needed answers even if they cut deeper. With that thought firmly in mind, Mark braced himself for the day ahead, sensing that everything he had once known was about to unravel. What awaited him at the diner would change everything. Would he be prepared for the inevitable confrontation? The morning sun spilled through the curtains, bathing Mark in a golden hue that seemed distant and unreal. He looked at the clock. Time was slipping through his fingers. Today was the day he would meet Helen, and with it, a chance to confront the swirling chaos inside him. He dressed quickly, though the clothes felt foreign on his skin. Every button he fastened felt like a question he would have to answer later. In the mirror, he barely recognized the man staring back at him. The grief etched on his features was profound. This wasn't just about finding out what happened to Danny. It was about reckoning with the parts of himself he had tried so hard to suppress. Pulling into the diner parking lot felt like stepping onto a stage, every detail familiar yet filled with an eerie tension. The neon sign flickered, evoking memories of laughter, shared dreams, and the sunlight catching on Danny's bright smile. Approaching the entrance, his heart thundered in his chest. Each step echoed the urgency that pulsed through him. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of coffee and grilled cheese. A few patrons sat scattered in booths, but his gaze was drawn to a woman seated at the very back. She looked like a shadow tucked away from the world. He fought the instinct to turn around and run, but something held him there. Mark's legs moved almost of their own accord, carrying him toward her. Helen's back was to him, her dark hair falling like a curtain. Would she turn around only to reveal the face of the unknown? A myriad of emotions welled within him. He didn't know if he felt anger or fear more profoundly at that moment. When she sensed his presence and looked up, he was caught off guard. Her eyes mirrored a depth of despair that felt almost familiar. There was no malice there, only a profound sadness, laced with a flicker of recognition. "You got my message," she said, her voice unexpectedly soft, tinged with hope. "Is it really you?" Mark asked, breathless. Why now?" She motioned for him to sit, and he reluctantly complied, sinking into the booth across from her. There was so much unsaid, but he couldn't dive into it just yet. Instead, his mind raced. "I had to come," he continued. "I thought you were gone. Danny's gone." The air thickened, heavy with unsaid words. Helen's eyes glistened, and for a moment, he wondered if she carried any of the answers he desperately sought. "Danny just gone," she whispered, glancing around as if the world held ears. "He's in danger. He was trying to protect you from something. Something I didn't grasp until it was too late." Her words sent chills down Mark's spine. Everything within him recoiled at the thought, and yet, there was also a flicker of desperate hope. "What do you mean? What happened? Listen to me." She leaned in closer. "You must trust no one but me. They're watching. The truth is darker than you realize. We don't have much time." His heart raced, balancing on a knife's edge between fear and curiosity. What about Danny? How is he connected to all of this? Tears filled her eyes and Mark felt the world spinning off its axis. She opened her mouth, but before she could utter another word, the diner bell jingled, and Mark's gut twisted with dread. A group of men stepped inside, their faces shadowed under the brightness. Helen paled, her expression shifting instantly from urgency to sheer terror. "Get out! Now!" she gasped, pushing him back toward the door. What had he just stepped into? With adrenaline surging through his veins, Mark stumbled out into the bright day, the world moving in a blur. He glanced back, but Helen was lost behind the chaos, her fate hanging in the balance. What was he caught in now? Would he have the courage to chase the truth, no matter how dangerous it might be? The weight of her warning hung in the air, a haunting echo that taunted him. As he took off down the street, he realized he might not be ready to face what lay in wait, or who might truly be pulling the strings behind the scenes. What did Helen know that could threaten both their lives? The answers were elusive, and Mark felt the unshakable truth sink in. Things were about to get a whole lot worse. Mark ran, his breath coming in quick bursts as he darted between the parked cars and down the sunlit sidewalk. Panic clawed at his chest, squeezing tighter with each step. He cast an anxious glance over his shoulder, half expecting to see the men from the diner pursuing him, enthusiasm for danger painted on their faces. Their entrance into the diner felt like a cue in a play, and he was suddenly unsure of his role. Each footfall reverberated in his mind, mixing with the frantic rhythm of his heart. What was Helen embroiled in? He didn't want to consider the weight of her words. Danny was in danger. It was easier to push that thought aside. He had spent so long shutting out the pain of his brother's death, only to plunge deeper into confusion. Just as he reached the edge of a small park, his phone buzzed violently in his pocket, a jarring sound that broke through the chaos. He hesitated, feeling the urge to ignore it to keep running. But then curiosity gripped him. It could be Helen. He pulled the phone out. The screen blinked with a text from an unknown number. His heart thrummed a bit faster as he read the message. "I'm alive. Don't trust her." The world around him fell silent, as if the universe held its breath. The words felt like a punch to the gut, leaving him breathless. Alive? Who was alive? Had Danny sent this? A swell of hope surged within him, but it was swiftly undercut by dread. He fumbled with his phone, desperate to reply, but an unsettling thought stopped him cold. Could this be another trap? Mark stood still, confusion swirling as he looked at the park, a familiar sanctuary. He had played there as a child. Now it felt foreign, the trees and benches only reminding him of what he had lost. He was in a grip of turmoil, oscillating between hope and fear. And then there was a rustle behind him. The sound pulled him from his thoughts. "Hey, you okay?" A voice called out. A man jogged past, giving Mark an odd look, as though he sensed the darkness descending around him. "You look like you saw a ghost." "Just lost my way," Mark mumbled, forcing a shaky smile. The stranger nodded and continued on, leaving Mark alone to grapple with the weight of his reality. He returned to the message on his phone, his fingers hovering over the screen. Fear bubbled within him as he debated his next move. Was he being watched? With trembling hands he deleted the text and shoved the phone back into his pocket. Then he turned, pacing in anxiety. What if Danny wasn't the only one whose life hung in the balance? What if Helen wasn't the enemy but instead a lifeline? "Think, Mark," he murmured, running a hand through his disheveled hair. He couldn't remain trapped in limbo. He needed to uncover the truth. And though the specter of danger loomed, the thought of Danny alive was a flame igniting resolve within him. After a pause that felt infinite, he made up his mind. He would find Helen, confront her about the message, and determine who could be trusted. As he headed back toward the diner, heart racing once more, a voice echoed in the back of his mind. "You must trust no one but me." But could he trust Helen now, especially after such an ominous warning? A question lingered over him like a storm cloud. What kind of truth could lead to the survival of his brother, or even doom them both? The stakes were rising rapidly, and he could feel the tension in every step he took toward the unfolding confrontation. Would seeking answers lead him to redemption or destruction? Mark quickened his pace, his spirit both hopeful and fearful. Time was running out, and the unknown awaited him at the diner. The diner loomed ahead, a beacon of familiarity in the storm gathering within Mark. He could almost hear the clatter of plates and the hum of murmured conversation spilling into the street, but the warmth of the place felt distant now, shrouded in uncertainty as he crossed the threshold. The bell above the door jangled softly, a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling inside him. The familiarity was unsettling. He scanned the room, eyes darting to the booth where he first met Helen. A sliver of hope pierced through his anxiety. Perhaps she hadn't been entirely truthful, but he couldn't just walk in and confront her. How did you even approach someone about a message that rattled your world? Mark. Helen's bright smile cut through the noise, tinged with worry the moment their eyes met. Where've you been? I thought you left. Mark's throat tightened. I just needed some air. She studied him, the flicker of concern in her eyes. It was enough to push him into action. Helen, I got a message, he blurted, keeping his voice low as he climbed into the seat across from her. From an unknown number. It said Danny's alive and not to trust you. The room faded away as her expression shifted, vulnerability flashing across her features. What? She whispered, barely audible. The light in her eyes dimmed, shadows creeping over her face. Mark, I swear I can explain. Explain what? He snapped, needing to let the anger bleed forth. How could you keep something like this from me? I'm your friend. How could you? Because I've been scared. Her earnestness cut into his rage, the weight of her confession pressing between them. There's a lot you don't understand, Mark. I've been trying to protect you, to protect Danny if he's really alive. Then why am I hearing this from a text and not you? His voice caught like gravel, filled with hurt and a desperate need for clarity. Who are you really, Helen? She looked down, then took a steadying breath, as though summoning every ounce of courage within her. There are people involved in this, dangerous people. I didn't want to draw you into it. I thought it would be safer for you to stay away. Safer? He shot back, the pressure in his chest building until it felt nearly unbearable. You need to trust me, Helen. If Danny is alive, I have to know the truth. We can't just. A sudden crash from the back of the diner interrupted them, laughter and chatter morphing into frantic whispers. Mark felt the hair on the back of his neck rise. He turned just in time to see two men in dark jackets scanning the room like wolves on the hunt, their eyes hard and bleak. Time to go, Helen breathed urgently, grabbing his arm. We need to get out of here now. He hesitated, torn between the squad of memories his brother had left behind and the pulling urgency of the present. Did he trust her? Did he trust anyone right now? As they rushed through the diner doors and back into the bright glare of daylight, Mark felt the choking weight of uncertainty once more. His thoughts spiraled. Who had sent that message, and was it true? Could it all be a trap? Please tell me you have a plan, he urged, adrenaline coursing through him. I have a place we can go, she replied, her voice steady but her eyes betraying a hint of fear. But you need to promise me something. No matter what you hear, you have to trust me. That simple request hung heavy in the air. His breath caught halfway between trust and doubt. How far would he have to go to find out the real truth? As they rounded the corner, Mark stole a glance back at the diner. Uncertainty mixed with hope, and he felt the looming threat follow them like a shadow. What lay ahead was unknown, but the specter of danger was finally chasing him down. Would he dare to confront it, or would he remain locked in fear? What if saving Danny meant forging alliances with those he was meant to fear? The question echoed in his mind as they hurried down the street, the clock ticking mercilessly against them. Mark's heart raced as they turned the corner, the echo of his brother's name reverberating in his mind. The message felt like a thunderclap, shaking the foundations of his world. What had once been buried under layers of grief now clawed its way to the surface, demanding attention. Helen pulled him into a narrow alley, the reeking garbage on either side testifying to the city's neglect. She leaned against the damp brick wall, her breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. We need to catch our breath, she said, but her voice was tight, her eyes darting about, searching for threats. What was that crash? Mark couldn't shake the growing dread. What if they're following us? They might be, she replied, her voice low. But we can't think about that now. We need to get to my brother's place. He'll help us figure this out. Your brother? Mark asked, unease creeping back in. And he's involved in all this? Why didn't you tell me? Not yet. He's been in a situation of his own. Not the same. Her words hung heavily between them, an unspoken warning. Not the same. What does that mean? Mark was frustrated. The constant layers of secrets were suffocating him. How could he trust her when secrets piled on top of secrets threatened to drown him? Hush, she urged, placing a finger over her lips as she peered carefully around the corner. I don't want to talk about it here. His chest tightened. All I want is the truth, Helen. Just the truth. She turned to face him, her expression tumbling between fear and resolve. I know that, and I promise once we're safe I'll tell you everything. But right now, please. Trust me. I need you to. A long moment passed, their eyes locked. Mark wanted to scream at her, demand she reveal everything now. Yet, there was a spark of desperation in her voice, something genuine that fought against the fear swirling around them. Okay, he finally relented. Let us get to your brother. They slipped back out onto the bustling sidewalk, weaving through pedestrians. The din of the city felt surreal around them, people moving on with ordinary lives, oblivious to the war raging inside Mark. As they reached her brother's place, a nondescript building tucked between a bar and a coffee shop, anxiety rose in his throat. Entering the door, he felt the weight of their fears settle over him like a storm cloud. The single bulb hanging from the ceiling flickered as they stepped into the small apartment. Mark's eyes darted to the disarray of furniture, a mixture of old and new, suggesting a life once filled with dreams that had now been muddled with shadows. Harrison, Helen called, her voice echoing in the silence. The seconds stretched painfully. Are you home? Just then, a figure stepped out from a darkened hallway. Mark's breath caught. He had expected a man in a suit or a traditional old family member, but the man standing before them looked like a ghost of who he once was. Sunken cheeks, a wild look in his eyes, clad in a wrinkled t-shirt and sweatpants. Helen, the man said slowly, as if piecing together a puzzle that didn't quite fit. His gaze fell to Mark, narrowing with suspicion. Who is this? He needs to know, she insisted, stepping protectively in front of Mark, her voice trembling. Harrison, it's about Danny. The atmosphere thickened. Mark's skin prickled with anticipation, every nerve ending screaming for answers. Would he finally get the truth that continued to elude him? What if knowing means opening doors best left shut? Harrison replied cryptically, the weight of those words hanging in the air. Mark's heart sank. What had he stepped into? Could the truth about Danny unite them or drive them all apart? As the tension bubbled and conversations swirled, it all came down to one question. What secrets would be unveiled in the name of brotherhood? And would there still be a path to safety in the chaos that followed? Mark felt as if he had been plunged into an icy abyss. Harrison's gaunt face, shadowed by the dim light, seemed to crumble the little hope he had clung to since they entered the apartment. He stood there, frozen, unable to reply, while Helen's eyes darted between them, desperate. Harrison, stop. This isn't the time for cryptic warnings, Helen pleaded. We need your help. He deserves to know what really happened. Does he? Or is it just going to unravel everything? Harrison countered, his voice edged with an unsteady rage that Mark couldn't quite comprehend. Don't you see, Helen? There are forces at play that you don't understand. Then explain it to me. Explain it to both of us. Helen shot back, her voice rising. Fear mingled with frustration. Mark could feel the crackle of tension between them. The chaos around him faded into a dull roar as his own heart pounded louder. Involved or not, I need to know. Mark interjected, stepping up, his voice firm despite the tremors of fear in his chest. Who is Danny? What happened that night? Why are we in danger? Harrison's expression shifted to pity, and it made Mark's stomach lurch. Danny he was mixed up in something big. Something dangerous. The voices people claim to hear, they're not just in their heads. But I never thought it would come back to haunt us. To haunt you. He turned his gaze unsteadily to Helen. You know what kind of person I've become since then. What I've lost. The silence hung between them, thick and suffocating. Mark glanced at Helen, her tears barely contained, and it hit him like a freight train. They were all haunted, each in their own way. The memories they shared, the laughs. The joy, how could those moments produce such darkness? Harrison, enough. Helen roared, desperation spilling over. If you know something about Danny, we need to talk about it. Now. Please. The tension broke as Harrison sighed deeply, rubbing his temples as if his head might burst. All right. But once I start. His voice trailed off, a look of fear washing over his features. Danny was in deep with some people who didn't play nice, he finally admitted, his voice low. He thought he could handle it. But they caught wind of something, he found out. Something that meant the end of them if he ever spoke. End of who? Mark pressed, feeling a sickening twist in his gut. Whoever is behind the events leading to his so-called death, they're still out there. And they won't stop. They'll come for you too if you keep digging. Harrison's eyes bore into Mark, a chilling weight behind his words. Mark felt wrapped in ice. But he is not dead, is he? The message I received. Mark, listen, Helen said, her voice shaking. I know what you want to believe. But this isn't about hope. It's about survival. We're in too deep already. The walls of the cramped apartment felt like they were closing in. Sounds of the city filtered through the windows, chaotic and carefree, while here they were battling shadows. Mark's phone buzzed in his pocket, startling him. He fumbled to pull it out, hoping for a distraction, something to cling to. But staring at the screen brought breathing to a halt. The message flashed at him like a beacon, bright and bone-chilling. Get out while you still can. Trust no one. Mark's heart thudded violently, a sense of dread creeping in. This message, he stammered, his throat dry. Are they coming for me? For us? Who sent it? Harrison demanded, eyes narrowing in suspicion. I don't know. An unknown number. Mark exclaimed, panic infusing his words. The nagging fear in the pit of his stomach flared, overriding any ounce of reason. The flickering bulb brightened, casting shadows in the small apartment. Tension sizzled like static, each heartbeat echoing in his ears. Suddenly, a voice called out from the hallway. Harrison, open up. All three jumped, sharing alarmed glances. It's them, Helen whispered, panic slashing her features as the door handle rattled and the voice grew more insistent. Mark's gut twisted with uncertainty. Time seemed to slow as they all stared at the door, knowing whatever was about to happen could change everything. Run! He yelled instinctively, adrenaline fueling his response. But where would they run to? The door slammed open and chaos descended like a storm. Mark realized that knowing the truth may just put them all in more danger than they could imagine. And now the real fight for survival was just beginning. The door burst open with a force that sent chills through Mark. A figure filled the doorway, silhouetted against the harsh corridor light. Instinct kicked in, propelling him backward, but there was no clear path to escape. The unknown loomed closer, and the atmosphere crackled with danger. Harrison, let us go, Mark shouted, but fear held him rooted where he stood. Mark! Helen's shout broke through the haze. We have to move now. Harrison's face twisted in uncertainty as the figure stepped inside. A man tall and broad-shouldered, eyes like shards of ice surveyed the room. Mark's heart raced as adrenaline flooded his veins. Trust me, you don't want to get caught up in this, the man said, his voice unervingly calm. Who are you? Mark demanded, trying to muster courage. Your only way out, the man replied, glancing back toward the door like a predator sizing up its surroundings. Helen grabbed Mark's arm, the grip a mix of fear and urgency. We can't stay. That message you received, it's true. They're coming for us. Before Mark could voice his protest, the man moved swiftly, gesturing for them to follow. This way. Harrison hesitated, suspicion etched into his features. You can't trust him, he warned. We don't have time for this. The stranger snapped. They already know you're here. It's not safe in the open. Mark's mind raced with confusion, but he felt the weight of the moment pressing down, pressing him toward action. We have no choice, Harrison. We need to go. A thunderous crash echoed down the hallway, and Mark's heart sank. They had to act or they'd be trapped. He pushed through his fear, snatching Helen's hand as he darted toward the door. As they spilled into the hallway, the man led the charge. Heart pounding, Mark felt the adrenaline course through him as he kept pace. He could hear voices yelling, footsteps pounding behind them. The sense of impending doom wrapped around him like a cloak. Somebody was coming. Down this way, the man called, veering sharply into an alley, pulling them behind a dumpster. The stench of garbage was overwhelming, but the desperation pushed Mark to ignore it. Why did you help us? He gasped, trying to catch his breath. The man's eyes darted toward the alley's entrance, waiting. I know about Danny. I know he is still alive, he said, his voice low. Renouncing the noise around him, one truth resonated deep inside Mark. Alive? But how? Why didn't he come for us? It's complicated, the man said, his gaze turning steely. But right now you need to trust me if you want to survive. There are things happening that you don't understand. Danny is involved and I'm the only one who can help. A low growl echoed from the alley. They were running out of time. Harrison. Helen snapped, trying to bring him back into the moment. We have to move. Let us go, Mark shouted, dragging Helen and glancing back to Harrison, whose face was a conflicting mess of indecision and protection. Do you want to find him or not? The man urged, his impatience spiking. Harrison clenched his jaw, and finally nodded. All right, let us go. He fell in line behind them, the shadows of the alley engulfing them as they raced through the darkened streets. Thoughts swirled in Mark's mind. Was Danny really alive? If so, what price had he paid? There were too many questions and not enough answers. Yet Mark felt the urgency of the moment. They were chasing something far greater than themselves. The further they ran, the more the danger seemed to escalate, and Mark realized they hadn't just stepped into chaos. They had stepped into a fight that would either reveal long-buried truths or leave them all shattered. With anxiety clawing at him, Mark took a deep breath, knowing they had to uncover what lay beneath the surface. Little did they know, the answers they sought were lurking in the shadows, waiting to upend everything they thought they understood about Danny and the tangled webs of lies surrounding them. Would they find him before it was too late? They sprinted through the dark streets, the chill of fear creeping into Mark's bones with each hurried step. Mark could feel the weight of Harrison's doubt, a tangible strain between them. They had always faced challenges together, but this felt different. Do you think it's really him? Harrison asked, breathless, the question lingering like a painful echo. I don't know, Mark confessed, his voice trembling. But we have to find out. The man in the lead turned sharply into another alley, his movements sharp and purposeful. Keep up. We need to get to safety first. I can explain everything once we aren't running for our lives. Helen stumbled for a moment on the uneven pavement, but Mark tightened his grip around her wrist, steadying her. You okay? He asked, concern threading through his voice. Yeah, just a little out of breath, she replied, her face taut with anxiety. The stranger led them to an old, abandoned warehouse, its shadow casting an ominous aura. He glanced over his shoulder, his icy eyes calculating. In here, he urged, pushing the door open and ushering them inside. Inside, the air was stale, filled with memories of what had once been. The faded graffiti on the walls and dust-laden beams held their stories of neglect. The flickering overhead lights cast eerie shadows that danced across the concrete floor. Once inside, the man shut the heavy door, blocking the outside world. As they all caught their breath, Mark couldn't shake the unease crawling up his spine. Now who are you? He demanded, still gripping Helen's hand. My name is Aaron, the man replied, lowering his voice. I work with Danny. Harrison's eyes widened in disbelief. You're serious? How do we know you're not lying? Because your lives depend on trusting me, Aaron snapped. This isn't a game. There are people out there who want to silence you. They want Danny gone. And they'll do whatever it takes. Fear washed over them like cold water. Mark's mind raced. What does that even mean? What does Danny have to do with this? Aaron took a deep breath, as if preparing for a confession. Danny stumbled into something bigger than any of us realized, something that put him on their radar. He's alive, yes, but he's trying to protect you from them. Mark felt his heart pounding louder, as if the very beat was an affirmation of hope and dread. What do you know? How do you know he's alive? Information came through an anonymous source. They want to warn you too, Aaron said, urgency sharpening his tone. He's working to get back to you. But his situation is dire, and he can't risk your safety right now. That's why the message "Don't trust her" was sent to you. Eyes darting around the dark warehouse, all Mark could think about was Helen. This is all because of the message I got, isn't it? He murmured, the realization striking him hard. Yes, Aaron confirmed. And it wasn't meant to frighten you but to prepare you. Someone close to Danny is using you as bait. You need to be aware of who you can trust and who you can't. The tension hung thick as they processed the chaos brewing around them. Mark felt the walls closing in. Trust? How could he know who he could turn to when finding Danny felt more like a twisted game of cat and mouse? Harrison, what do you think? Mark asked, catching his friend's eye, seeing the internal struggle as the weight of the situation mounted. Before Harrison could respond, a loud bang reverberated through the warehouse, rattling the doors. Mark winced, the sudden noise slicing through the sudden silence. "They've found us," Aaron said, his voice firm but laced with urgency. "We need to move now." Heart racing, the stakes were clear. They had to escape, delve deeper into this perilous reality, and search for answers about Danny's disappearance. Would they uncover the truth before time ran out? "Which way?" Mark called out, the pulse of adrenaline intensifying as they prepared to face whatever awaited them outside. The echo of danger stirred in the air as Mark, Helen, Harrison, and Aaron bolted from their hiding place in the abandoned warehouse. With pounding hearts, they dashed down the alley, adrenaline surging through their veins. Fear fueled their flight, but so did a flicker of hope, the promise that Danny might still be alive. "Where do we go?" Mark shouted, desperate for direction, while the sound of footsteps and shouting behind them drew nearer. "Follow me." Aaron led them to a side street, where he ducked into a nondescript door tucked behind a garbage bin. The situation felt surreal, stepping deeper into uncertainty, yet Mark trusted Aaron's urgency. They slipped inside and Aaron quickly shut the door. Soon enveloped in darkness, they found themselves in another dimly lit space, a cramped storage room filled with boxes and old furniture. "Stay quiet," Aaron warned, his voice steady despite the chaos outside. The muffled shouts of men searching for them pulsated through the walls, chilling Mark's spine. "Now tell us everything," Helen insisted, her eyes fierce, though strain threaded through her voice. "Who are these people? What does Danny know?" Aaron took a breath, the gravity of the moment settling in. Danny uncovered information that many would die to keep hidden. It revolves around trafficking, human trafficking specifically. He stumbled onto a network that involves people in power. When he found out, they marked him. That's why he's gone. Mark felt his heart plummet. Danny had simply been a kid full of dreams. Laughter, the thought of him tangled in such darkness was almost unbearable. "But he's alive." "How do you know this?" Aaron lowered his voice. "An insider reached out to us. They couldn't meet Danny directly, that would expose him even further. But they're still monitoring the situation." "What did they say?" Harrison asked, worry etched in his features. "They warned us of a setup, a plant. Someone's close to you, feeding information to whoever is after him." Silence weighed heavily, each of them processing the implications of Aaron's words. Only one thought echoed in Mark's mind. Who could it be? "Helen, it can't be you," he muttered, his heart racing. She shook her head fiercely. "Mark, I swear. I'd never betray you. We have to find out who is leaking the information." Suddenly, the door rattled violently. "They're here." Aaron hissed sharply, urgency crackling through him. "Quick. We have to go," he urged, pushing them toward a back exit. "Follow me, we'll circle around." Moving quickly but silently, they ducked through a narrow passageway at the back of the storage room. The dim light of the outside faded, replaced by shadows dancing in the alleyway. Their bodies pressed together, they maneuvered through the darkness, hearts pounding like drums. "How much time do we have?" Mark whispered, anxiety splattering his thoughts as they navigated twists and turns. "Not long. We're running out of chances. But I know somewhere safe," Aaron replied, leading them deeper into a web of alleys that felt endless. As they reached a corner, Aaron halted abruptly, turning to face them. "This is where we split. You need to lay low. I have some contacts nearby that can help. I'll try and retrieve Danny while you stay hidden." "What about us?" Helen protested, her eyes pleading. "You'll be safer here. You need to avoid the eyes looking for you. Protecting us doesn't keep Danny safe." Mark snapped, a surge of frustration bubbling over. "You said he's in danger." "I'm doing everything I can," Aaron countered, his voice sharp but softening with understanding. "Do you trust me?" Mark hesitated, thoughts racing, but finally he nodded. "I just want him back." "Stay hidden," Aaron instructed, sincerity etched into his features before he dashed away into the shadows. The moment he disappeared, fear set in. "What now?" Harrison asked, the weight of worry clear in his voice. "Now we wait," Mark replied, trying to steady himself. "We have to believe Danny is fighting to come back. If he is truly alive, we can't lose hope." As moments turned into minutes, silence engulfed them. Every creak and rustle heightened the tension, And Mark's mind spiraled with a flurry of thoughts. Could they rescue Danny? Would he even want to come back to them after all this chaos? And then, as the wind whispered through the alley, a buzzing sound broke the silence. Mark's pocket vibrated. He pulled out his phone with hands that trembled and read the text illuminating the screen. I'm coming. Trust no one. Hope surged within him, but so did the chilling doubt. Who is it? Helen asked, glancing over his shoulder. It's from Danny. He.s. coming back, Mark breathed, the emotion flooding through him. But just as relief washed over him, the shadows around them seemed to shift. A figure emerged from the darkness, the air heavy with an ominous vibe. There you are. You've been a hard group to track down, the man said. His voice low, calm, and menacing. Mark's heart raced and desperation kicked in. Run! He yelled, but before they could react, the man lunged at them, darkness engulfing their chance for safety. Just when it seemed like all would collapse, a glimmer of light appeared, a beam penetrating through the otherwise cold chaos. Run, I'll hold him off. A voice shouted, unmistakably Aaron. Emerging from the shadows, rising like a phoenix in turmoil. Mark knew this was their moment. He darted forward and grabbed Helen's hand, pulling Harrison along as they dashed back through the winding alleys, hope aflame within their chests. They would not give up, not when the truth about Danny waited on the other side of the storm. As they raced through the ghostly streets, fear held its grip, but determination surged louder. The battle for Danny and themselves had truly begun, and with it came a fire of loyalty and love that would ignite their fight against the darkness. They ran, ready to uncover the truth, knowing they would face whatever challenges awaited, together as a family, against the odds. And together, they would reclaim hope as long as they remembered to trust one another. You need to subscribe now if you want to keep following this epic story. Hit that like button to help us reach more people with this journey. Share your feelings about the ending in the comments. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who also need to see this transformation. Your support matters and makes a difference. Let's do this together.